there are just some cases that don't have hardly any information. Hey guys, it's ayebeepee and welcome back to my channel. And we are here with another episode of season 2 of the Unsolved in West Virginia series. In this case I wanted to talk about because it is an unsolved murder that has happened quite a while ago, but it's just proof that there is a lot of information that is not gathered on a lot of crime cases. Now this one, I really don't feel like it's any fault to the family or any fault to the police. It's just a very unfortunate situation. So we will go over what we know of Irene Wilson, but I'll be honest, I could only find about 2 to 3 sources on this woman at all. I could not find any family members on Irene Wilson, so this is not a video that I was able to work on with a family. So if you know anybody that is related to Irene Wilson, please let me know down below and I'll get in contact with you, because I would love to send this video their way and make sure the information I have is correct about her. Irene was 52 at this point in time and she lived in Broomstick, West Virginia. She was considered short and almost everyone said she was very friendly. People say that she wasn't into extravagant things. She was actually pretty modest in that way. She didn't need things to be flashy. She was a devoted Christian and a very hard worker. She worked at Grantsville, Ben Franklin's 5 and 10, and Fetty's store in Pleasant Hill. From what I understand, she had just a pretty normal life. She worked, she came home, she went to church, she was friendly with everyone in town, and people just loved her. But on January 5th, 1963, Irene was coming home from work from the Fetty's store, and she was just fixing vegetables in her kitchen. Her husband, Delfred, was working at Rubber Fabricators in Grantsville. He had called Irene when he knew she was getting home from work, and she didn't answer, which was not like her. He was getting a little worried, so he called his neighbor Henry Welch and told him that Irene wasn't answering and it was kind of bothering him. Do you care to go check on her? Henry sent his 2 stepdaughters, who were teenagers at the time, Diane and Juanita, to Irene's house around 9:30 p.m. And when they walked in, they just saw Irene slumped over the kitchen table, not really moving and not breathing. So the girls ran out of there and went to call the police. When the police got to her house, it was very clear that Irene was stabbed to death. She was stabbed 52 times. Investigators had linked that maybe because she was 52, there was a stabbing for every year of her age, but like I said, there's just no information that was really given in this case. So I have no idea. That's just a theory that was thrown out there. It was also very clear that Irene was beat badly. There was a clear hit to her jaw. She had a broken dental plate, multiple bruises, and of course stab wounds. And the hair on her head was partly torn away and burned. And of course, this is when the investigation started. For this time period, you have to remember, we're in 1963. There are not huge advances in science that help us catch predators that much at all at that time period. So I truly believe the police did everything they could with the time period it was in. They were able to determine that she was sitting down when she was attacked, so it could possibly be someone she felt comfortable with, or she didn't even notice whoever did this was there. The West Virginia State Police's J.R. Wrightmore and C.C. Beck did send a butcher knife that was at the house off for investigation to the Charleston's crime lab. They were able to determine that her time of death was around 5:30 to 6 p.m. So she had been laying there for a while before the girls had found her. There was no sign of struggle for her attack, which also goes to the theory that maybe it was someone she trusted or she didn't notice they were there. And there was absolutely no sign of sexual assault. It was clear it was not a robbery because there was still money laying on the table that Irene was slumped over. And there was a prosecuting attorney attorney, Stanley D'Orazio, that did try to question people around town and make a suspect list. And the cause of death was a stab wound to her left lung that caused her to hemorrhage. So there are two theories that people do talk about with this case for the little amount of people that do talk about her. Of course, the husband is a big suspect. They said her husband, Delfrid, did have a bad temper. He had many aggressive encounters around town with people that did make them point the finger at how brutal her murder was at him. He was constantly threatening and trying to fight neighbors or just people around town. But people that were related to her did not think this was Delfrid at all. They actually believed it was another man that we are about to talk about. There is a man talked about that went by the Yellow Creek Man. I guess because he was never deemed an actual suspect, his name was never released. But he did suffer from schizophrenia around this town, and mental health was just not taken seriously then. He probably wasn't getting treatments, he wasn't taking medication, and he didn't know how to handle his schizophrenia. There were multiple events where he made people uncomfortable and just did off-the-wall stuff, including when he cut his own penis off. He flushed it down the toilet at a bar, and he came back into the bar and quoted scripture and then said, "If it offend thee, cut it off." Weird, right? So it didn't shock people that he would brutally murder someone the way that Irene was murdered. But there was no actual evidence to ever link this man to this crime, so it's very possible he could be guilty or not guilty. After Irene's murder, the town took safety way more seriously. Started locking their doors, not leaving stuff in their car, and just really watching their back, because if it could happen to Irene, who had this normal, beautifully simplistic life, it could happen to anybody. And especially where they never found out who actually did this. The person could easily still be just walking around. Irene's house that this happened in ended up being burned down at some point after this. And this really pushed people to start moving away from the town because they didn't even feel safe anymore. So about 5 months after this murder, Delfrid showed up to the hospital having a heart attack, but unfortunately he was dead on arrival. Irene and Delfrid did have children, but they just absolutely don't comment on their mom's murder at all, except to fight for justice for their dad. They claim he had nothing to do with it. They know he had nothing to do with it, and they would really like for people to get that out of their mind. No person was obviously charged in this murder at all, let alone any evidence that points to anybody. And Irene's murder records have never been made public. They are held at the West Virginia State Police though, as of today. So if you know anything about Irene Wilson and what happened to her in 1963, if you've ever heard your grandparents talk about it, or if you parents or just family members from around Calhoun County, please take it seriously, even if you don't think it could help at all. Get a hold of the West Virginia State Police or the Calhoun County Police. No detail is too small. It could be the thing that changes this whole case to solved. It breaks my heart to think that in earlier times it was so hard to get cases solved because evidence just could not be passed through and linked to people as easy as it is now. So it's very important to keep these types of stories out there and talked about. It's crazy to me that this person was brutally murdered, like stabbed 52 times. That breaks my heart. And she was beaten before that? No, I can't. But like I said, if you know any of Irene's family members, please get me in contact with them to make sure that I did this story justice. And on top of that, please, any detail you know about Irene Wilson, let the police know. West Virginia State Police or Calhoun County. And thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for me, and hit that notification button. That way you're notified the next time I upload. Also, I would like to remind you that there is a GoFundMe that I have linked below for Crystal Young. Please go back and rewatch her video. That way you can tell the story and understand why this mom needs to hire the PI that got a hold of her. And then on top of that, I also have stickers for sale from my last season of Unsolved in West Virginia. The proceeds go to the Cold Case Foundation, all proceeds. So please go and buy some of those. That way I can send that donation over. And thank you again so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!